Good morning, everybody. I think I see everybody here. Mom, you made it back in time. That's amazing timing. Oh, good morning, Chris, Linda, Penny, Joelle. Joelle, I was just looking at my calendar. We have our class tomorrow night, the Edward Sands Frost primitive designing with stencils class. 3 Canadians in that class. Isn't that funny? I thought that was a funny coincidence. So we've got that tomorrow. And then on the next day, the beginner design, filling in the pumpkins class, the hooking. Let me know if you're doing that. I have one person doing it, and I felt like there was multiple. But I know, right? I need the reminder too. I hate these circle glasses. Why did I buy these? Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Marie. It's good to see you all. I got the post up a little bit late today. I was running as usual. Just good morning, Sheila. Oh, it's so nice to get together in the morning. I look forward to it so much. Good morning, Chrissy. Chrissy asked for to have more yarn up on the page, and I am working on that this week. I've got 4 designs to show you for the sweater, hooking with recycled sweater, idea kit, or pattern or PDF. And I am going to start posting this week more yarn, because I do so much bulky yarn and super bulky yarn. Very colorful, and then just plain colors for whipping. And I need to get that up too. It's all crazy. So I was just in the shower having a Bates Hotel moment with clattering and noise coming into the room, and me going, who's there? And no one answering. And somebody left me this little thing. I love you, Mom. And then Mom on the back. I think I know who. I think it's our Joss with a little thing inside. I love you, Mom. So that it scared me almost to death. But in the end, getting a cat winking at me is worth it. It was worth the great scare. She is too cute. So I have been busy, one-eyed cat busy. And I'm going to show you the 4. I said I was going to do 3, but I always have to overdo and overextend. I did 4 designs to start out with to make as either a PDF. These are going to be on the site in a couple of hours. I'm a little bit behind. The recycled sweater project. So I'm getting so many messages and so much feedback on this. Good morning, Karen. So I want to be sure that we get these out. Now, these are not going to be the full size. I'll give you a better size. We're probably going to do something like, I would say 14 being the biggest measurement, 12 or 14, probably more like 14. So these are the 4 designs I came up with so far. If you're not seeing something you like, just let me know, because these are just sketchy primitives. So this is the first one. When I put these kits together, I've got those bags of sweaters. So I'm going to do the best price I can. It's going to be low, but it's going to be first come, first serve, because once those are gone, it is not super easy finding them. It's easy finding them, but not at a good price. So we'll do the good morning, Anita. Good morning, Brandy. Good morning, Rebecca. Coffee in hand. I know she's such a doll, isn't she? She's always, she made that heart, and I really appreciate it. But this is partial avoidance of doing schoolwork too. And I'm also aware of that. But I mean, how can you, with the cat winking, how can you say anything about that? Just let it go for now. This is the first design. So this, you remember we were talking over the last couple of weeks about motifs in hooking, and cornucopias are a big motif for primitive design because they represent abundance and comfort and also welcome, having enough. So good morning, Anne Marie. So this is the first one. I hope you can see it. Yep, you can see it. So this one's called Sunny Thank You. So the cornucopia is for thankfulness, and then it's got a bunch of sunflowers in it. So this is like a crossover pattern. These feather scrolls are interpretive, like so much of primitive design, right? You've got a very balanced set of cornucopias, and the pumpkin in the middle, which should really pop. I've got some orange sweaters as long as they last, and I've got some yellow and some mustard for the sunflowers. And then the background will be, I'll do my best to get the kits a good balance between light and dark, but I think this is a great primitive design. And even if you want to order it as a regular pattern on linen monk's cloth or a PDF, I just think it's a great primitive design. I love doing primitive designs lately. It's just such a thing. This one is called Scatter Joy. So this is basically just a very folky squirrel. I like this kind of a squirrel because you can do individual little rows coming out off the main tail. The silhouette is pretty solid, but then you can do these coming off like feathery and give it a real Penn Dutch folk feel. And the background is just oak leaves and acorns. So it looks super busy, but it's not. You can see I put like swirls in between stuff, just to remind you that in that open area in the back of a primitive design, it's up to you to decide, am I just going to continue the lines around the leaves and the acorns, or am I going to add a swirl? There is no right way. It's completely up to you what you choose to do in those situations. And I've got, this is the basket one. It's called Hidden Hearts because it's some flowers, some, not sun, but there's some hidden hearts in here too. You see here, and one on top. So I thought it was cute to do something that was a little bit different from a straight primitive. We got the lamb tongue motif around the sides, a little bit on the top, more like swags or theatrical curtain on top. But a few leaves, a few very simple flowers that you just will go center, center, center until you're there. Any sort of color combo. And remember, the best primitive rugs that we've been looking at are not balanced color-wise. You get one color here, one color here, one color here, and they're not balanced at all. Thanks, Joelle. Hey, Gabriel. Karen, I saw. Okay, I'm catching up. And this is the last one. This is the butterfly one. It's not a traditional butterfly. I can do a traditional monarch or something like that, but it's a more, this is the least primitive of the ones that I did. So we've got like the main butterfly in the middle, and you can interpret that however you want in terms of color and design. You do not have to do what I've done. And then I balanced it with two different styles of pears on the edges. A few oak leaves, maple leaves. This is called Autumn Wind, like the Frank Sinatra song. And I've just put in dots in scrolls as a suggestion of where to put color and where to put movement. If you need a suggestion, if you don't, you just go the way that you go and do your thing. Your thing is always the best. But so these are the first four primitives. If you're designing your own primitives to work on sweater stuff, I would just remind you that when you're designing primitives, this is what the Edward Sands class is going to be about tomorrow. One of the things, two main things that you don't want to do to have a really successful and strong composition, you don't want to hit the border with any motif, not even a scroll. If you can stay with your scrolls and with your main motifs, butterflies, flowers, cornucopias, squirrel, acorns, anything, stay away from the border. Thanks, Linda. Stay away from the border. As soon as you hit the border, your eye does something different and it goes to the edge. And if there's nowhere for it to go, that would make it a confusing element to the composition. So try to stay away from the border and try to stay away from letting motifs touch each other. So it's okay if a scroll radiates out and there's waves, waves, waves out to the edges. That's perfect. That's right. That's intended. But if you've got like a squirrel, don't have like the top of a flower touching his head or something, because again, that's where confusion can come when your eye looks at the composition, especially because with primitives, you typically want a lot of different colors in the open space in the background. So try to keep away from the border if you're designing yourself, and try to keep away from main motifs touching each other, because they will, to your eye, create a conjoined shape, which won't be immediately easy to read. So just an idea. So that is happening. What else is happening? Preview of things to come. I wanted to show you, I ordered these two things from Amazon because people are always asking about moths. I'm always battling moths. I always am. It's super frustrating. It's like the plague after the mosquitoes is like the moths appearing from God knows where. But anyway, I do a lot with cedar. So I've got the cedar things that you can actually hang. They're like hangers in the closet. And I do a lot. Hey, Elizabeth. I do a lot with like cedar stuff in drawers and sachets and things like that. I don't do a lot with mothballs because they smell. And I don't do a lot with lavender because I haven't found it to be super effective for anything but falling asleep, which it is great for. So cedar for me has been a great thing. And it has that woodsy outdoor smell that reminds me of imagined country life that I don't live, that I love. So from Amazon, I ordered essential oil, and I'm going to be putting this together. You can't see, but it just says essential oil. It's a box, a huge box that won't open. It's one of these tight air things, but it's a giant container, glass bottle with like a stopper thing of oil. It's huge. It's heavy. It's a big thing of cedar oil. And what I'm going to do, I did this last year with Joss, and I lost it. I made a bunch of these things for Christmas and I lost them all, or at least they're upstairs with the Christmas wrapping. This is a bag. So that's a bottle of oil, cedar oil. And this is a bag of wildflower by HU Hands. These are, the felt dryer balls that are really like golden in the wash, but that are really huge and heavy. These are tiny 1-inch ones. So this company makes a bag of tiny 1-inch ones. I forget how many are in here, but it's a lot. So what I'm going to do is recreate the project that I did last year with Joss, and I'm going to dye these felt 100% wool felt small 1-inch balls. I'm going to dye them, and I'm going to soak them in cedar oil. And then I'm going to string them with a needle and thread like a garland, and I'm going to hang them all over the place where my wool is, where my stashes are, where my finished Fifi pieces are, find it, finish it, incomplete pieces I want to come back to, where anything that's not protected, like in a Tupperware thing, all of that stuff, I'm going to hang garlands that are colorful and pretty and dyed and happy to look at, but also soaked in cedar oil, because that should certainly keep the pesky moths away. So a couple other things I want to show you quickly. Sweater thing. The guy started spamming yesterday, and I get nervous when I see spammers because I'm afraid of what they're going to say, that it's going to say something shocking or awful or something. So I got nervous. But Heather was in the middle of saying that if with your sweaters, your recycled sweaters, it's not working to strip them, it's just not working because it's too much of a blend, or it's too thready or Fair Isle in the back, you can't get a good cut to work with. She started saying you can wind them onto a winder or just over a piece of cardboard into a ball of yarn to use for hooking. Double it up, quadruple it up, whatever, to get it thick enough that you're happy using it to hook with. And the last sentiment that she said before we got spammed yesterday, now I'm nervous staring at the thread, was, if you plan to do that, do not wash the sweater, because as soon as you wash a wool sweater, it becomes felted. Everything is really ingrained into itself, and you are not going to be able to pull it off as a strand anymore. So if your intention when you buy something, or you look at something and you say to yourself, oh, this does not fit the sort of criteria for being able to cut it into strips and hook with it, I think I'd rather turn it into a ball of yarn for hooking or punching than make sure that you don't wash it, because you will not be able to, that won't be a possibility anymore. I just wanted to review this too. I want to show you, because I found this sweater that had tons of holes in it yesterday, and I went, yes, one of my favorite 80s sweaters that no longer fits me and is filled with holes. I'm going to use this for hooking. I forgot, I'm not going to be able to use it for hooking, because remember what we said yesterday, if the inside is made up of these kinds of stand-away threads, the way that the sweater is woven is with a lot of stand-away threads, this is not going to work. This is the same as a Fair Isle. This is not going to work. And I just want to make the point that the reason, remember this polka dot one from yesterday, the reason this one does work is because these color pops are not woven, they are felt. So they have been felted. God knows how the machine does this. Machines are so smart, but they are felted in there. So when I washed it, a few of them, there was some loss in a few of them because the felt becomes very threadbare. It's already overextended, right? Because it's been worked so much. But in general, most of the dots came out fine. The reason why I was able to use this kind of a printed sweater and not that kind was because this does not have any stand-away long threads. It's not woven that way. The color has been felted into it and not woven into it. I hope that makes sense, because if you're spending money on stuff, you want to be sure that you can use it for something, right? So I also want to show you this. I was working on this, and then I want to look at my new favorite book. I was working on the Nancy Thomas pumpkin. I already managed to screw it up several times, but I got to be me, right? So this is the image that I started yesterday, and I did the beginning of part one of a video for Hunter, her daughter, who is going to be hooking along with us. Anybody's doing this pumpkin. I'm doing all four, but I love this design, and I just went all Kaffe Fassett crazy with color. It just happens. It's like a, fever. I got a little too crazy with color. So I'm deciding, I'm real happy with the lime green. I'm real happy with the orange, very dreary, pouring rain day. So I hope you're seeing color. But the pumpkin itself has a lot more color than it seems. It's very dark. If you can see all these splotches at the bottom, this is what I think, like on a grape in a vineyard, they would call like the bloom. Like it's almost like a cloudy, I don't want to say moldy, but like a cloudy, filmy, spackly color, and it's lime green. So I started doing it here, and I'm just not sure it's working. I might have too much color in the pumpkin. I like colors too, Penny. It's like, Deanna, can you, I am going to try to report the spammers. The thing is, as soon as the thread ends, to prevent having the tail of the video be me like staring blankly into the camera and trying to figure out what to do, I shut it off, and then I'm not able any longer to see or communicate on the thread. So I think I got it yesterday. I think I got that particular person yesterday who obviously has a lot of time on his or her hands, but I'm going to try again. It's super stressful and irritating to be wondering who's popping up like a whack-a-mole. It's like a game of whack-a-mole, whacking these people down. What is the name of the magnet you use? Okay, so the magnet that I use here is called a needle nanny, Nanny, like Mary Poppins. I forget where I got this one. I'll find it and let you know. This could hold. Remember the commercial of the super glue and the guy, the construction helmet hanging from a pole, like with his full weight? This thing could do that. It is so strong. I normally have my scissors on it. I have like 5 different things on it. This is a punch needle. It's not strong. This isn't strong enough, but this is. I could probably clip the microphone to this. It's super strong. In fact, I usually put my scissors sideways so it's easier to pull off because the more surface it's touching, it really doesn't want to let go. But it is super good. Needle Nanny. If you put that in, I'm sure a lot of things will come up. But this particular company, this is like a flying geese design. She has a lot of quilt designs and a lot of Halloween designs. So nice. So to be continued. Cushing sells them. Thanks, Linda. I thought they didn't sell them anymore. I was having trouble finding them on their site, but maybe they restocked or something. I'm sure I looked there first, but where I ended up getting it, I just loved her designs. They almost looked like pins or something. They were so neat. So I have to show you this book. I've been looking at this book in bed for a while, and the 30 seconds I get between children and unconsciousness. Heather Ritchie. Do you know Heather Ritchie already? Am I super late to the game? I know I'm super late to the game with everything, but I just can't believe how great this book is. So I've got my overhead light on because it's raining today. I'm going to try to get you really good pictures. This is called Hooked Rug Storytelling, The Art of Heather Ritchie, Ritchie. And it is by Lesley Mary Close, Close, like close. This book is unbelievable. So it has a dust jacket that's exactly the same. So it's a very thick book. It's put out by Schiffer. Schiffer is actually my favorite. They do a lot of books on antiques, and they're starting to do more books on crafts. Good. I'm glad you found it, Marie. Feel free to post a link if it's easy. This book is unbelievable. So this book is all about storytelling. And, it just got me thinking that probably a big part of the reason that we love hooking is because we like to capture a moment. Sometimes you're just filling in a design, coloring book style or Zentangle style. See, ever since I was taught that word, I will never let it go, just like a marble cake background. But, for me, I love storytelling in rug hooking. That's why I do so many original designs. And when I don't do original designs, I do other people's designs like Nancy Thomas's, because it's almost like borrowing a part of another person's reality, doing like her Halloween scene with the 2 kids in the pumpkin patch. That's not something I'd ever thought to do. That's not something I ever would attempt to do because she's already done it, and she's done it so well that I hooked it. So it's almost like when you hook something that you love, you are borrowing or collecting moments from yourself, from your own memory bank or your memory museum, or from other people. And this book is about storytelling with rugs. And this book is about her life, Heather Ritchie, and the rugs that she's done that represent different memories and different phases in her life. Super personal. And it's written by Lesley Mary Close, as I say. And in the preface, it says that Lesley went to Heather's house. Heather apparently has this beautiful country house that was also a B&B. I don't know if that's still the same, but Lesley stayed there and was very inspired by her rugs and got into rug hooking thus, and started writing this book about her collection because she felt that Heather's rugs were so important as storytelling pieces. We sometimes call them memory rugs more in the US. This is a British book, so there's a lot of things that are weird crossovers. For example, she usually works on burlap, Scottish burlap, which we typically don't, but she does. Scottish burlap is very upscale compared to like sack sacking burlap, but they call it Hessian and not burlap. And they call, I think I've mentioned this before, rug hooking hooky. So there are a few things that are not lost in translation. They're very easy. But this book is about her rugs and her life. There's a lot of how-to in it, like how to pull up loops. She does a lot. She doesn't do a ton with Prati. She does a little bit, but she does a lot with pulling loops up to this extent, where they are really a part of the composition for specific reasons. In her Victory Garden, that's one of hers. I'll show you. That's a big sort of motif, is these really blooming cabbages and lettuce heads in the garden. So each chapter is about, I'm going to show you parts of it because I want you to get it if you're interested, and I don't want to rip her off by showing too much. This is the Halfpenny Ferry. Now, the town where she lives in is a water town or a river town. So the ferry has always been a big part of her life, her parents, her grandparents. She talks about the history, got to change glasses now. She talks about the history of the river in their town and the importance of this little ferry. It's obviously a very little ferry. It's not a car ferry by any means, but you can see the main difference between the original photo that she's working with, which is a family photo, and the finished rug is the introduction of color. It's not a ton of color, but there is color there. Also, the introduction of movement. There is just a suggestion of waves in the original photo, and you see what she's done with concentric circles here. She's done other effects, like this sort of like castle type house on the hill. She's made it almost dreamy, like a fairy tale. She makes very specific design choices. And in this book, she tells you what she's thinking with all of her choices. She's extremely personable, conversational in its tone, this book is, keeping an eye on the time. But she's giving you so much technique. She's telling you a lot about the history of where she's from in the north of England. And I mean, you're getting so many close-ups of how she hooked that particular rug. She's very, what we call painterly, in that she leaves a lot out, and it's so hard to do that well. It's so hard to do less is more with anything in life, I think, but she does it so well. So there are long chapters that are specifically about that particular rug and the story behind the rug, and so much on technique. And this is the next chapter. This one is called Victory Garden. So do you remember World War II history? We did it in the US, but first in England, and very strong in England, was the idea of the Victory Garden, where people had like a communal plot, which is common again, but they would grow things to have shipped or sent somewhere so other people could get fresh food. It was a major problem, people having scattered, men having left and scattered. The Victory Garden was a major show of patriotism during the Second World War. So take a look at her Victory Garden. I mean, this is just like crazy. And see the cabbages down here, and there's a lot, these are large. There's a lot of really high pulled loops. And you see in terms of composition, the pigeons on the side there. That made me think of, when I was a tour guide, I went to the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C., and one of the whole rooms was an exhibit of photography done by pigeons during World War II, because this sounds like a joke, but you probably know this already. They strapped little cameras onto pigeons and they took photos over Germany, over enemy, places that the enemy forces had taken over, so that they could get information about geography and location. And these photographs are beautiful. And almost all of them, at the edge of them, framing the photographs like bookends, are the tips of the pigeon's feathers, wings. So having the pigeon in for me was like the pièce de résistance of this composition. These little shacks too, what do they call them? There's a specific name. It's not a name that we would use here in the US. She said it a few times. I'm not going to find it, am I? But this is like a little shed. They had like a little shed, and then this special building that had this particular function with the Victory Gardens, because people would man parts of them, right? Like you would have your own. And this is her dad at the door of his, leaning on his shovel. And this is the photo of him with her leaning on, I think that's her, maybe not, maybe that's another child, leaning on the edge of his shovel. So just so neat, so personal. And then it goes into the history of the Second World War a little bit, and shows you propaganda posters, dig for victory, showing you lots of close-ups of how she achieved this garden, this aerial garden. because to her, she describes in this chapter, it was important to have the aerial view of it. She uses her hooking, her proddy, her French knots, lots of different techniques, and she tells you about all of them. And I'm not going to go through the whole book, and we will run out of time, but this one is about her rug called the Evacuees. This is a close-up. Isn't that so sort of Paddington Bear of a suitcase at the station? This one kind of breaks my heart thinking about all the kids. This is her in the middle with her two brothers, the kids that got sent to the country from the cities because they were bombing the cities like crazy and it wasn't safe. So it was a very routine thing to send kids out to the country with relatives and friends to be a bit safer. Have you ever seen the movie called Hope and Glory? It's such a good movie. It's mostly a comedy. I think it was filmed in the 80s. It's a British movie, Hope and Glory. It is one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's about the Second World War. It's funny. It's sad. It's everything that she's talking about in this book. And this book isn't all about the war. This is her childhood. These are memories first from her childhood. And then she gets more and more recent. But that's her rug called the Evacuees. And you see the Pyrex. You see they're obviously in a city with factories in the background. Beautiful directional sky. Pyrex factories. One of the boys, maybe the brothers, has the teddy bear. And they have tags on everything, including themselves, because they would go without adults. And just be put on trains. And then a person like this person would account for everybody who was expected. Lots of margin for error there, right? This would never happen, but extreme times, extreme measures. So that's the Evacuees. She talks a lot about hooking with different materials because she does it. So in this part, the end of one chapter, this is on a different rug, she actually talks about hooking with knits, and that's what we're doing now. So I just wanted to read you what she wrote because I feel like it's consistent with what we know so far. And as we go and as we all start hooking with sweaters, we'll all have more tips that we can share with each other. But she says, knitted fabric is not woven, of course, and dressmaking velvet comes into this category. Heather loves to use velvet in rugs, but points out that it must be dressmaking velvet whose background is knitted, not furnishing velvet, which is a woven background. The distinctive appearance of knitted fabric means it is easy to cut both ways, parallel to the knitting stitches or diagonally across them. So we already know that because so far, no matter what way I cut with sweater knits, it's working out. Cutting from side to side along the rows of knitting or diagonally across them produces a stretchy strip rather than a bias cut plain weave fabric, which can be pulled into a secure thin strip. If you do pull on it, the strip will tend to curve in on itself, hiding the cut edges, which makes it ideal for very fine work. By warm washing knitted fabrics before cutting them, as you should watch all your fabrics before rug making, in parentheses, you will achieve a slight felting of the fibers. This will help knitted fabrics to remain intact when cut into strips, whichever way you cut them. So I thought that was very, very helpful because that was real consistent with what we know so far. I have 2 more minutes, so I just want to show you a couple more things. In the back, she stops doing a whole chapter with every theme of rug. You know, at the beginning, every rug she shows has so many elements that are important to look at in huge detail. And toward the end, she's just showing you, a selection of rugs from her past. I love this one. This is the 3 Ritchie children. So her and her 2 brothers look longingly through the window of a baker's shop. I thought this was so whimsical. See the road stretching behind them and the northern hills and the old stone houses, so British looking. And it's so bleak and gray on the outside. But then when they look in the window, look at all those colorful things with fruity berries and layers of pink. Now, her colors, she dyes her own colors, and she is a big proponent of chemical dyes. So she doesn't do the natural dyeing. She talks about dyeing with chemicals in an instructional way so that if you're interested in that, she's giving you another voice on that. She gets more into modern life and her now life. This is where she lives, the Wreath Village Green. So she lives in a place called Wreath, and this is her interpretation of it. Now, doesn't this village green look like it's ready for an Agatha Christie murder or something? A big village fate, and at least one person gets killed or poisoned or something. But you can see her colors are just grand, to use an English word. And you're getting in this book tons of close-ups, which should be really helpful. She hooks fairly fine, and she hooks a lot with yarn, and she talks a lot about the difference between those two things. But this book is colossal. It's colossal in terms of its size. as far as storytelling, this is as good as any fiction I've ever read. Just sitting and reading about her stories is so entertaining. It's a good history lesson. The rugs are over the top beautiful. They're just over the top. Look at this one on the cover. I'm not even sure which one that is. I haven't finished it yet, but look at the sort of joy. There's one of carolers, like Christmas carolers in this book too. I didn't pull that because I didn't want to show too much, but look at the sort of joy and excitement on the face with the snow falling, Hall Farm. I mean, it's just a gorgeous book. Highly, highly recommend looking at anything about Heather Ritchie. I'm going to research her more because I'm sure she's in Rug Hooking Magazine. And Atha, the new Atha arrived today. We'll look at that tomorrow. I had it. I didn't even open it. This just came in the mail this morning. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, I'll open this with you tomorrow, and we'll see what's going on with that, what kind of patterns they've given us this month. In the meantime, have a great day. We are spam free today. Woohoo! Have a great day. Be busy and productive. I will put the 4 primitive kits or patterns for recycled sweater hooking on ribboncandyhooking.com right now. And have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow.